congratulate the Right Honourable Lady on delivering her second budget. I hope she enjoyed it, because it really should be her last. Yeah! What a total humiliation. A total humiliation. Last...
Can colleagues who are exiting the chamber do so swiftly, so we can focus on the Leader of the Opposition? Swiftly exit, quietly. Right. Leader.
Right, buckle up, because Rachel Reeves just had an absolutely torrid time on live television. And I'm not talking about a few awkward questions from a sympathetic interviewer. I'm talking about a complete evisceration by Express columnist Carol Malone, who basically accused the Chancellor of living in an alternative universe and talking absolute tosh about the state of the British economy. Reeves unveiled her budget earlier today, trying to put a positive spin on what can only be described as an economic disaster, and Carol Malone was having absolutely none of it. Speaking on the Daily Espresso podcast, Malone systematically destroyed every claim Reeves made, pointing out that the Chancellor seems completely detached from the reality of what her government has done to the country. The £22 billion hole in public finances that Reeves keeps banging on about, it's now estimated to be between £30 and £50 billion. Inflation is rising, not falling. Growth forecasts have been downgraded, debt is spiralling, and according to Malone, Britain has never been on a more insecure footing, thanks to Rachel Reeves and what she's done. So how has the Chancellor managed to make things so spectacularly worse? Why is she still blaming the Tories and Brexit when Labour's been in power for months? And what does this budget actually mean for ordinary people like Carol Malone, who's now facing double council tax? Let's dive into this absolute car crash. Quick favour before we get stuck into this demolition. If you're watching this thinking, bloody hell, Carol didn't hold back, then hit that subscribe button right now. Over 92% of you haven't done it yet. It's completely free, takes 2 seconds, and genuinely helps us. Cheers if you did. Right, let's talk about Rachel Reeves getting absolutely destroyed. So let's start with Carol Malone's central accusation, which is absolutely devastating. She told the Daily Espresso that Rachel Reeves is living in an alternative universe, not just out of touch, not just mistaken, but living in a completely different reality from the rest of us. And the evidence she presents to back that up is frankly overwhelming. Reeves has been constantly referring to a £22 billion hole in the public finances that she inherited from the Conservatives. She's used this figure repeatedly to justify tax rises, spending cuts, and various unpopular policy decisions. It's become her go-to excuse for everything that's gone wrong. But here's the problem. That £22 billion hole is now estimated to be much, much larger, between 30 and 50 billion pounds, according to current assessments. So the financial disaster is actually twice as bad as Reeves has been claiming, possibly more than twice as bad. And yet she's still using the original figure, still pretending the problem is smaller than it actually is. Carol pointed out that despite this worsening situation, Reeves is still blaming the Tories and still blaming Brexit for everything. Now, look, it's fair to say that Labour inherited economic challenges from the previous government. Nobody disputes that. And Brexit has certainly had economic consequences. But at some point, you have to take responsibility for your own decisions. Labour has been in power for months now. They've made policy choices. They've implemented budgets. They've taken specific actions that have had economic effects. And those effects are Labour's responsibility. Not the Conservatives, not Brexit's. You can't indefinitely blame your predecessors when you're the one actually running the country. And here's where Carol's criticism becomes particularly sharp. She points out that inflation is on the up, not down. The Office for Budget Responsibility, which is the independent body that analyses government economic policy, has upgraded its inflation forecast for 2025 by 0.2 percentage points to 3.5%. That might not sound like a massive increase, but it's heading in the wrong direction Inflation is supposed to be coming down. That's what the government has been promising. That's what the Bank of England has been working towards. But instead, it's rising, and that has real consequences for ordinary people. Higher inflation means your money buys less. It means prices in shops go up. It means your wages don't stretch as far. It means people get poorer in real terms, even if their nominal wages stay the same. Carol absolutely fumed about this, saying it's like she doesn't know what's happening. She's literally talking tosh. She's not talking the reality of what her government has done and what these latest moves are going to do. Talking tosh. That's a pretty damning assessment of a Chancellor of the Exchequer. It suggests that Reeves either doesn't understand the economic situation she's created, or she understands it but is deliberately misleading people about it. Neither option is particularly reassuring. The GB News contributor added that Britain has never been on a more insecure footing thanks to her and what she has done. Never been on a more insecure footing. That's an extraordinary claim, but when you look at the numbers, it's hard to argue with. Carol also highlighted that the OBR had downgraded growth for next year, despite upgrading this year's forecast to 1.5%, up from the previous forecast of 1.0%. So there's a bit of good news. This year's growth is slightly better than expected. But that's immediately offset by the fact that next year looks worse. The experts downgraded the 2026 growth forecast to 1.4%. It had previously been estimated at 1.9%. That's a significant downgrade from 1.9% to 1.4%. That represents billions of pounds in lost economic activity, thousands of jobs that won't be created, tax revenue that won't materialise. And it means that all of Reeves's spending plans, all of her promises about investment and public services, they're based on growth projections that are now revealed to be overly optimistic. The debt picture is even more alarming. Specialists predicted that debt will rise as a share of GDP from 95% this year and will end the decade at 96%. That's 2 percentage points higher than projected in March. And get this, it's twice the debt level of the average advanced economy. Twice. So Britain isn't just carrying a lot of debt. We're carrying dramatically more debt than comparable countries. That makes us more vulnerable to economic shocks, more vulnerable to changes in interest rates, more vulnerable to loss of confidence from international investors. It's genuinely dangerous territory, guys, and Reeves doesn't seem to have any credible plan for dealing with it. Now, here's something interesting that Carol pointed out. The OBR's analysis was leaked before the Chancellor appeared at the dispatch box to deliver her budget. That's unusual. Normally, these things are kept tightly under wraps until the Chancellor makes her statement. But this time, the bad news got out early. Carol speculated that it might have been done on purpose so Reeves couldn't pretend like it's all going to be okay. The OBR has basically said right from the off, no, it's not going to be okay. That's a remarkable situation. The independent body that's supposed to assess government economic policy has effectively, preemptively contradicted the Chancellor's optimistic spin before she even delivered it. That tells you everything you need to know about the credibility gap between what Reeves is saying and what the actual economic reality is. But let's talk about what this means for ordinary people, because that's where this gets really personal. Carol revealed that the property tax changes will mean she'll effectively be paying double council tax. Her home is not far from the £2 million threshold, and owners of properties in England valued at more than that watermark are going to be hit with a surcharge of at least £2,500 from 2028. Now, before anyone says, well, if your house is worth £2 million, you can afford it. Let's think about what this actually means. Carol pointed out that her house price will probably go down because people who have houses worth £2 million or more are going to lower their asking prices to get under the threshold. So people in her bracket, just below 2 million, are going to have to lower theirs as well. The market will adjust downward to avoid this punitive tax. And here's Carol's key point about this policy. Council tax is supposed to be about services given to the people in the area. This is not about services. This is another form of tax, and a big tax. She's absolutely right. Council tax was originally designed to fund local services, rubbish collection, street lighting, local schools, libraries, that sort of thing. And it was meant to be a relatively fair system where people paid for the services they received from their local council. But this mansion tax, as it's being called, has nothing to do with services. It's just a wealth grab, is the government saying. You've got a valuable asset, we're going to tax you on it, regardless of whether you can actually afford to pay or whether you're receiving any additional services. And for people like pensioners who've lived in their homes for decades and seen property values skyrocket through no action of their own, this is potentially devastating. They're asset rich, but cash poor. Their house is worth a fortune, but they're living on a fixed pension income. Where are they supposed to find an extra £2,500 a year? The broader pattern here is what's really concerning. Every single economic indicator is going in the wrong direction under Labour's watch. Inflation up, growth down, debt up, the fiscal hole bigger than advertised, business confidence collapsing, investment being pulled from the UK. And through all of this, Rachel Reeves stands at the dispatch box talking about how Labour is fixing the economy, how things are getting better, how their plan is working. It's the disconnect between rhetoric and reality that Carol Malone is highlighting. The Chancellor is saying one thing, but every objective measure is showing something completely different. And the political implications are enormous. If the OBR is publicly contradicting the Chancellor's optimism, if respected columnists like Carol Malone are saying she's living in an alternative universe and talking tosh, if the public can see with their own eyes that prices are rising and growth is stalling, then Labour's economic credibility is shot. And without economic credibility, what does Labour have? They can't claim to be better managers than the Conservatives if all the economic indicators are worse under their watch. They can't blame Brexit forever when they're the ones making policy decisions now. They can't keep pointing at the £22 billion hole they inherited when they've made it twice as big through their own actions. Right, that's the absolute demolition of Rachel Reeves by Carol Malone and the devastating state of Labour's economic management. Thanks so much for watching this breakdown of how the Chancellor is losing grip on economic reality. Make sure you're subscribed because this budget disaster is going to keep developing. Until next time, stay informed and we'll see you in the next one.